Hi friends, Caitlin here with Sass and Stitch Crochet, and today I'm going to be walking you through a tutorial for the Sassy plant pocket. About a year ago I created the original plant pocket. It's intended to use for air plants, or you can use little fake greenery like this here. And I fell in love with the design, and so did my audience, and so this year I wanted to create a second version, this one being just a little bit more dainty looking, and you can play around with some color with this version. So I'm really excited to offer you guys this one for free. So what you're going to need for this plant pocket is a 4-inch macrame ring. This is a metal, like steel ring. It can be any color, but it needs to be about 4 inches in diameter. You'll also need sport weight to DK weight yarn, 2 or 3 weight yarn. This is technically a 2 weight, but it's a little bit thicker, so I think you can get away with a 3 weight yarn as well. You'll need something to hang your plant pocket with. I decided to use twine for mine. You'll need a 3.5mm crochet hook, scissors, and something to measure your work as you go. So once you have all that ready, we can go ahead and get started. So just like my plant pocket here, I'm going to start with my white yarn. So I'll put everything else aside for the moment. I just need my white yarn. And we are going to start by making a circle. You can either use the magic circle method, or you can do the chain 4 and slip stitch to join method. I like to use the magic circle. And we're going to start by chaining 2. And this chain 2 is going to count as a stitch. So now we need to place 11 double crochet into our circle, with this one also counting as a stitch. That'll make a total of 12. So let's go ahead and place 11 double crochet into our circle. Yarn over, insert into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's how you'll be making your double crochet into the circle. So I've done 2, 3, 4, 11. I'm going to go ahead and count. So including the chain 2, you should have a total of 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you've done the magic circle method, you can go ahead and cinch up your circle. And now we are going to do a slip stitch join to the top of the chain 2. So this is our, so here is the chain 1. This is the second chain. We're going to slip stitch into that second chain of the chain 2. Okay, let's pause here for a moment. It's important that you measure your work as you go. Since we are using a very specific sized frame for our work, we need to make sure that we're getting it to the right size by the end of our work. So it is important to measure. At this point, your work should be about 1 inch in diameter. And now we're ready to move on to round 2. Alright, go ahead and do a chain 2 and turn your circle over. We're going to work the other way now. And now we're going to be placing 2 double crochet into every stitch from the first round. So for our first set of 2, our chain 2 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to place our second double crochet into this stitch here. Now this is technically the join space that we just made, but we're going to count this as our first stitch when we're going this direction. So just do 1 double crochet into that next space, and then we're going to do 2 double crochet into each stitch around our circle. So at the end we should have a total of 24 double crochet, including this chain 2. Into this next stitch we should be placing 2 double crochet, 1 and 2 into that same stitch, 2 double crochet. You'll be repeating that into each double crochet from the previous round. Go ahead and continue working around your circle, and I'll meet you back at the very end. Alright, I've worked my way back around. I have one more stitch left to work into, so this is number 23 and number 24. And again, we're going to slip stitch join to the second chain of the starting chain 2. Alright, now we're going to chain 4 and turn. So this chain 4 is going to count as our first double crochet plus a chain 2, and now we need to place a double crochet into that same stitch that the chain is coming out from. So you should have this little V. If you pull that chain out into the double crochet and the chain 2, you should have a little V there. Now we're going to skip a stitch, and in the next stitch we're going to do a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet all into that same stitch. So that creates another V. So we're going to be repeating this around. We'll be making little V stitches that look like this, and we'll be skipping the next stitch. So go ahead and skip this next stitch, and we're going to do double crochet, chain 2, double crochet all into the following stitch. One more time, skip the next stitch, and then in the next one you'll do double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Go ahead and repeat this around, and I'll meet you back around at the other side of the circle. Okay, so by the time you reach the end you should have 12 of these V stitches around your circle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, including that starting one, so I have one more left. And I have 3 stitches left at the end with my 11 clusters. So I need to skip the next one, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and you should have 1 stitch left over at the end, and you'll be skipping that one to put a skip stitch between these 2 clusters, your starting and your ending cluster. Alright, so now we're going to slip stitch to the starting chain 2, but remember this is a chain 4 that we started with, so we need to find chain number 2. So this is, counting backwards, this is number 4, this is number 3, so we need to find the second chain from the starting chain 2. Okay, so at the end of round 3, our work should measure right about 3 inches, and you should be measuring straight across your circle. Okay, at this point you can fasten off your first color. You don't need a long tail or anything, so you can just cut it off fairly short, enough to weave in. And now we're ready to move on to our second color. So make sure before attaching your next color, make sure you flip your circle over because we'll need to go the opposite way like we've been doing after every round. Go ahead and attach the second color in any way you prefer. I prefer to make a slip knot. And then when you attach your second color, you want to attach it into any chain 2 space around the circle. It doesn't have to be right where you left off, and I actually prefer not attaching right in the same spot so it doesn't make this too bumpy. I like to go just a couple over, and you'll be attaching it again into any chain 2 space. So any space that's between these two double crochet, this is a chain 2 space. So I'm going to insert my hook into that space, put the slip knot on my hook, pull my slip knot through, and chain 1 to secure your color. Alright, so this chain 1 is not going to count as a stitch. It will not count. So we're going to be placing 3 single crochet into this chain 2 space. So 1 single crochet, 2, and 3. 3 single crochet. Now, in this next space, which is not a chain space, it's just the space between these two double crochet, you'll be placing 1 single crochet just into that space, not into the tops of the stitches. Okay, now we're at the chain 2 space again. You'll be doing 3 single crochet, and this next space you'll be doing 1 single crochet. And you'll repeat this all the way around. So it should be 3, 1, 3, 1. So by the end you should have a total of 48 single crochet around your circle. Go ahead and continue this and I'll meet you back at the end. Okay, I've gone all the way around my circle and I have 1 more single crochet left to place, so I'm going to do that. You can go ahead and slip stitch join to the starting stitch. Alright, at this point we can go ahead and measure our circle again. We haven't grown too much with this round, so we should be looking at right about 3 1/4. 3 1/4. So at this point, if you're getting more than a 1/4 inch of a difference in your size, I would recommend adjusting your tension or adjusting your hook. Particularly if it's a 1/4 inch too large. It's really going to be an issue when you go to attach this to the ring and your circle is too big for the ring. It's going to have extra fabric and pucker, and it's not going to lay flat. So I highly recommend adjusting your gauge by a little bit if you're coming up not close enough to 3 1/4 inches at this point. Alright, now we're going to chain 2 and turn our circle. Okay, so this is the round where we're going to be adding in these spikes that you see. There are these little spikes that dip into the white part of our circle, and this is where we're going to be doing that aspect. So our chain 2 is going to count as a stitch for this round. So that means we don't need to do anything with this first stitch here because this chain 2 acts as the stitch for this spot. So we're going to move on to our next stitch, and this one happens to be the first spike stitch. So this is going to be basically a half double crochet, but when you do it, so yarn over, instead of doing the half double crochet into the stitch from the previous round like you normally would, you're going to come into this skipped stitch from round 2 of the white portion. So again, go ahead and yarn over, and you're going to insert your hook into that skipped stitch all the way down here. Just as you would normally, you're just doing it a couple rows down. Yarn over and pull through the stitch, And now when you do that, you want to pull up your work to give it the height that you need to be for the current row. If you leave it all the way down here, it's going to cinch your circle in, and that will not work out very well. So you need to pull up to the current height of the row, and you can finish your half double crochet. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And that is the first spike stitch. So now, after you create the spike stitch, you'll notice that there is that stitch right above the skipped stitch. So this was the skip stitch we just worked into, but this single crochet was right above it. So even though we've kind of worked over top of that, we can't skip it. So we need to do a normal half double crochet into that stitch. So if you need to, you kind of just need to scoot your spike stitch over to reveal that stitch right there. We'll do a normal half double crochet. Okay, now you're going to do half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and we're back to this part of a skip stitch again. So you can go ahead and do your spike stitch down into that skip stitch, yarn over and pull up to the current height, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then remember you need to scoot that spike stitch over to reveal the one that you just skipped. Do a normal half double crochet, and do a half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you're going to be repeating this all the way around the circle. You'll have your spike stitch scooted over to reveal, and then you'll have a total of 4 half double crochet in between each spike stitch. So go ahead and continue all the way to close to the end of the round, and I'll meet you back over there. Feel free to watch this section again if you need to see this repeat one more time. Alright, I'm back around to the other side of my circle. I have 1 more stitch left to place, but I just wanted to show you. So I have 2 spikes here. I have 2 half double crochet here. And remember that the chain 2 also counts as a half double crochet. So I have 1 stitch left, which is perfect because that will make my 1, 2, 3, 4 in between these 2 spikes. So I'm going to do my last half double crochet. You can slip stitch to the second chain of the starting chain 2. Let's go ahead and measure. You should be sitting at right at 3 3/4 inches, which is the perfect size for our 4-inch macrame ring. And it's okay if your circle is looking a little floppy or doesn't lay completely flat. Mine doesn't either, but it will once we attach it to our ring. So you can go ahead and fasten off. We're done with this for now. And we're going to move on to the second part of the Sassy plant pocket. We just created, if you look at this plant pocket, we just created the back circle of our plant pocket, and now we need to go back and create this front half circle that creates our little pocket. So that's the next thing that we have to make. So we're going to go back to our first color, which is white for me. And even though this is a half circle, we're still going to be starting out with a circle. So again, I'm going to use the magic circle. If you like to do the chain 4 and slip stitch method, I actually suggest doing chain 3 here instead of 4, just to create a little smaller of a circle, and you'll understand why once we get started. So go ahead and make your circle, and you'll do a chain 2. And again, this chain 2 is going to count as a stitch, and we need to place 5 double crochet into our circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and including the chain 2, you should have a total of 6 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go ahead and pull your circle tight. And you'll see here now, for the people that did the chain 3 and slip stitch circle method, you'll see that you don't want very much to stick out at the bottom center of your circle, and if you do the chain 4 and slip stitch circle, sometimes that's just a little extra space that sticks out and makes it look a little messy. So that's why I suggested the chain 3. If you did the magic circle though, you can just ignore all of what I just said. So go ahead and chain 2. 1, 2. Turn your circle, so we're going to be going the other direction. And we're placing 2 double crochet into every stitch. This one counts as our first double crochet, so we only need 1 more into that next one. And we'll do 2 in each of the following stitches from the previous round. Alright, I've done 10 so far, and you might think that you've run out of stitches, but remember that the chain 2 from the previous round counts as a stitch, so that means our last 2 double crochet have to go into the second chain from this chain 2 here. So it's a little bit hard to find. You don't have to make it exactly perfect. You just want to find a spot to stick your hook into at the very end there. Find a spot that feels secure, and then do your last 2 double crochet into that spot. So you should have a total of 12 double crochet, again including that first chain 2. Alright, now you're going to chain 3 and turn. 3. And this is where we're doing those V stitches. The reason we did a chain 3 here instead of a chain 4 is because we don't want it to stick too far outside of the half circle. So go ahead and place your second double crochet into that first stitch. Skip a stitch and do double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip a stitch, chain 2, double crochet, chain 2. Now we need to skip 2 stitches. We have an even amount of stitches, which means we need to skip 2, and we'll do our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip a stitch, and again we'll be working the last set into that chain 2 from the previous row, and this time we're going to do a, oh, let me find it. Let's see, go double crochet, just do a chain 1 like how we started, and double crochet. And we are done with the first color, so you can go ahead and fasten off. Now we're ready to add the second color, so go ahead and do this the way you prefer to add new colors. I do my slip knot. And this time we do have to attach it to the same spot that we fastened off because we're not working in a full circle this time. So try to get as close to the edge as you can at the top of this last double crochet. Okay, so we're going to start by placing one single crochet into the top of this first double crochet. And then we're going to place one single crochet into this chain one space. Now we'll place one single crochet into this next space between the two V-stitches. And now we can proceed as we did when we did our first section. So we'll do 3 single crochet into this chain 2 space. One into the next space, 3 into the chain 2 space, 1 into the next space, 3, 1, 3, 1. Okay, now that we're at our last cluster, we're going to do 1 into the top of this next double crochet, 1 into the chain 1 space, and 1 into the second chain from the starting chain 2. Okay, now we're ready to chain 2 and turn. This is going to count as our first half double crochet, and we're going to place another half double crochet into that first stitch. Place the next 2 half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, so you'll have a total of 4 so far, the chain 2 plus 1, 2, 3, total of 4. Now we're at the skipped stitch space, so you can go ahead and do the half double crochet spike stitch, pull up to the same height and finish the stitch. Remember, scoot that over to reveal the stitch behind it, and half double crochet into the next 4 stitches. 2, 3, 4. Do your half double crochet spike stitch, and the next 4 half double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now you're at the part where you've skipped 2 stitches instead of 1. For this spike stitch, just go somewhere right in between these 2 skipped stitches. So instead of going into the very top of one of them like we do with the other spikes, just go right in between those 2 stitches. So this should look like that. It's just coming up right between them. And finish your stitch. Alright, and you can continue on as normal. Do the next 4 half double crochet. And your next spike stitch. Four half double crochet. Go do your last spike stitch. half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And place 1 more half double crochet as close to the edge as you can. So I might not put it in the same spot that I just did, but I'll try to get it kind of right at that knot where we tied off the white yarn. Be a little bit tricky, but you want to get it as close to the edge as possible. Okay, so don't fasten off yet. We are done. Those are our rows, but now we're going to crochet evenly across this edge so we can give it a nice clean edge. So go ahead and chain 1 and turn so you're working along this edge now. And this isn't going to be exact, but you're going to be placing stitches along this line and trying to get it as even as you can as you go. So I'll be starting to place single crochet along this edge. I want to place my first one as close to the edge of the work as I possibly can. So I'm going to get it right in there. And as you go across, this won't be an exact placement. You might place them slightly different than mine because it is just a little bit of guesswork on where's the best place to put them. But you want to make sure you're working evenly across so they don't stretch too much across between each stitch. So I'm going to place my next one right between the white and the pink cutoff here. Alright, I'm going to place my next one right in between the pink and the white. Single crochet. And make sure when you're going across, like this spot would be the next place to put one. I don't want to just go into this hole because that's going to make the hole more prominent. You don't want to go into the obvious spaces that you've made. You want to try to create a space by just picking up 1 or 2 threads across the line. So I found a little spot to squeeze my hook into, and I'm going to do a single crochet. There's another spot right here. I'm going to do a single crochet. Yeah, so just keep doing this. You want to just find little holes that you can work into without them being an obvious space to work some single crochets across. Just for reference, so far I'm right before the middle and I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't have to make the exact same number as me, but that's just what I've done so far. And I tend to do mine a little bit differently every time I make them. So again, there's a lot of room for just guessing where you think is the best place to put the next stitch. So I've placed 1 in the middle, and then I can keep going across. So now I have 6 on this side, 1 in the middle, so ideally I would try to put 6 more along this side to keep it even. 2, 3, 4, 5, and again, just like we did at the start, you want to place your last stitch as close to the very edge as possible. So I'm going to place my last one right here. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with how that turns out. It might look just a little bit wonky because you are trying to get something that's not perfectly straight to be straight. But again, as you crochet onto the circle, it should stretch out just a little bit to make it more of a straight line. At this point, you can go ahead and weave in the ends if you would like to. It's a little bit hard to weave them in once you've attached this onto the ring. So I recommend doing that first. And now we are ready to bring back over our full circle and our ring. So when it's all attached, that's how it's going to look. You want your full circle in the back and your half circle in the front. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hold these 2 items together. Now when you're doing this, you want to try to line up the spikes between the 2 pieces. So I have a spike right here on this half one. So I want to try to place it in position with a spike on my other panel. So that looks about lined up for me. And this yarn should still be attached to your half circle. Go ahead and insert your hook back into where you left off on your half circle. Chain 1. And now you're going to insert your hook into that first stitch on the half circle. And I'm working in, it doesn't really matter which way you work. The circles will look slightly different from the back view and the front view. You can kind of decide which side you like that looks better. I prefer the look of this side, so I'm going to have this side facing up as I'm attaching these together. So make sure they're facing the same way when you're attaching these. So go ahead and insert your hook into the first stitch of your half circle. Insert your hook into a aligned stitch from the back panel, the full circle. So I have my hook inserted through both of the pieces. I'm going to set my ring on my hook. So now I'm holding all 3 pieces and my hook is underneath all of them. I'm going to complete a single crochet, so yarn over and just pull through all 3 of those pieces. Complete your single crochet and you'll be able to tell that that single crochet attached your ring to your 2 panels. Now you're going to do the same in the next set of stitches. So find the next stitch on the half circle, find the next one on the full circle. Make sure you're going under the ring when you do this. Finish your single crochet. Alright, again you're going to go into the next stitch on the front, next stitch on the back, under the ring, and complete a single crochet. You're going to do this in each set of stitches around until you get to the end of the half circle, and then you're going to continue this into each stitch around the rest of the full circle. So keep doing this and I'll meet you back here. I will meet you back here at the end of the half circle. Alright, so I'm around to the other side of my half circle. You'll see that I've technically run out of stitches along this side, but I want to grab one more spot to really pull this edge clean to the edge of my ring. So I want to actually insert my hook into the first stitch along the flat side of this half circle and insert your hook into the next stitch on your back side and pull through as normal. And doing what I just did will really pull your flat edge over to the edge of your ring to make it nice and clean. Now you can continue just going into the full circle stitches around the rest of the ring. Okay, I have one more stitch left to work into, but just like we did on the other side, I want to pull the edge of this flat edge as close to the ring as I can. So I want to insert my hook into the last stitch of this flat edge. Might be a little hard to work into. Do your last single crochet, and then you can slip stitch to the starting stitch. You can go ahead and fasten off your yarn, and you can go ahead and weave in the end, and you are done with the pocket portion. Okay, so now we're ready to attach our twine. I have a little bit more of a complex way to attach my twine, but it does create a nice clean attachment onto the plant pocket. You're more than welcome to do it a simpler way, but I'll go ahead and show you the way that I attach my twine. So I like to have roughly a 12 to 18 inch length of twine, so I have a little bit of space to work with it. And I'll create a bend near the end of the twine. Now I'm going to take my crochet hook and turn it to the back of my plant pocket. So I'm going to feel for where I have the half circle, and I have a spike stitch right in line, which you can see on this side. There's a spike stitch right in line with where I have the top of my half panel. So I'm going to go to the back side and insert my crochet hook from back to front right underneath that spike. And if you don't have a spike stitch exactly here, you can just insert it into any stitch space from the front to the back. Okay, now I'm going to place my twine on my crochet hook and use my hook to pull just the bend of the twine through to the back. So just that loop that I placed on the hook. Okay, now looking at the back of the plant pocket again, I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch that's right below where I pulled my bend through. So I can't go into that same spot, but I'm going to place it just into the spot below, from back to front again. And now I have a long tail and a short tail. I'm going to grab that short tail and pull that to the back. Make sure you're not pulling this loop out. Okay, so at this point you should have this loop through the back and you should have this short tail through the back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my tail and insert it into that loop, but don't go all the way yet. Insert my tail into that loop. Now I've created this second loop with my short tail. This is my first loop. I created this little loop here, so I want to take that tail again and insert it into that second loop that I just created. Now I'm going to grab the long tail and the short tail and pull as hard as I can. So this creates a nice clean knot on the back, and on the front you can't see anything at all. It's just the twine coming out of it. Okay, and I feel very confident in this tail that it's secure, especially with the twine because it's not slippery. So I'm confident myself in trimming that pretty short. And that takes care of one side. So you're going to do kind of the same thing on the other side. You want to start by creating a little bend in the twine. Grab your crochet hook from the back to the front. And pull that twine through. From the front to the back. I've got the little bend in the back. Now I need to bring the short tail from the front to the back. So I'm going to insert again. Grab that short tail and pull that through to the back. So at this point you want to pause real quick and you want to see how long you want your plant pocket to hang. So I want my plant pocket to hang just a little bit more, so I need to adjust it slightly. I need to give a little less slack back here so that I have more room for my plant pocket on the front side. So make sure you're looking at the length of your hanging piece before you confirm this second side. Okay, so I have just a little bit to work with, but we will take our little tail. I know it's a little hard to see. Take your little tail. Sit. Help you in just a minute. Hold on. Insert it into that bend. You've created a second loop here. Insert it into that second loop and pull both sides of the twine very tight. Go ahead and take care of that end however you choose to take care of it. And then there you have it. You have your Sassy plant pocket. Thank you so much for following me along in this tutorial. Let me know what you thought about it, and I would love to see your photos of your finished plant pocket. I have all my social media linked in the description box, so you can find me on there and tag me on those platforms. Again, thanks so much and have a great day.